With April being National Woodworking Month, Grizzly and I decided to partner up and make a series of projects surrounding a mutual love of the Grizzly family and myself. Guitars. This is a story about that. The founder of Grizzly Industrial, Shiraz Balolia, is a guitar enthusiast, as am I. I haven't made a guitar myself, but do have a modest collection, and an acoustic parlor guitar is on my bucket list. We thought it might be a cool idea to have a beginner, intermediate, and an advanced project to introduce and inspire people to make something. I'm starting with the beginner project, a wall-mounted guitar hanger. I'm milling my own stock of rough-sawn red oak from my property, but I'm dimensioning it to be the same size as a common 1x3 of red oak you could buy from the local home improvement store, though I implore you to find a better source of quality hardwoods. I start by cutting it down to a manageable length, then face and edge joint it at the jointer, then send it through the thickness planer. I ripped it down to its width at 2.5 inches. A 1x3 actually measures at 3/4 by 2.5 inches when you buy it from the home store. At the miter saw, I cut my 3 pieces to length, 2 at 4 inches and 1 at 2.25 inch. This could also be achieved with a crosscut sled on a table saw or a simple miter box with a handsaw. Then I made some marks a 1/2 inch from the edges to make countersunk holes for screws. At the drill press, I used a rather dull plug cutter and some scrap cherry I had to make some plugs to cover the screws. Once the plug cutter had done its job, I separate the plugs at the bandsaw. Alternatively, you could pop them out with a screwdriver or a chisel. If you don't have a drill press or plug cutter, you can buy wooden plugs commercially at grizzly.com. I bore some countersinks in the 2 4-inch side pieces with a Forstner bit. If you don't have a drill press, you could also accomplish this with a handheld drill. Just take care to drill as perpendicular to the wood as possible. For the divots that would house the head of the guitar, I turned to the oscillating spindle sander. You could also make these divots with a round bottom spoke shave or sanding drum drill attachments. With all the components ready for assembly, I clamped all the parts together and pre-drilled for screws, then drove 1.25 inch case-hardened cabinet screws. Stay away from drywall screws as they easily snap when overdriven in hardwoods. Stick with wood or cabinet screws. With the piece assembled, I added the wood plugs with some wood glue and let them dry. I could have done the next step about 30 minutes later, but I came back the next morning to flush up the plugs. Here, I'm using a flexible flush cut saw to flush the plugs. You could also use a Japanese pull saw like I'm using here. Heck, you could even flush up 2 at a time. Once the plugs are cut close to flush, I make sure the surface is totally smooth by using a random orbital sander. This could also be done by hand sanding or with a sharp smoothing hand plane. To soften the edges, I added a chamfer to all the sharp corners. Here, I'm using a chamfer bit and a router table, but you could also use a handheld router. If the router isn't your thing, you could use a block plane like this. Let's say you're just getting into woodworking and don't have any of those options yet. How about a piece of sandpaper stuck to a piece of wood? For the more dexterous of folks, you could apply a chamfer with a sharp chisel, like this. If you didn't have any of those options, I'm sure you have a flat surface, so you could take the piece to sandpaper on something like a tabletop. With all of my edges chamfered, I sanded all of the faces up to 220 grit and coated the guitar hanger with my shop-made finish of beeswax and mineral oil, but any finish would work. My second choice would probably be something like a commercially available Danish oil or tung oil. My office is where I make these videos, but also store some of my guitars. I like nothing more than to keep them on display, so I found a stud and mounted the hanger with 2.5-inch panhead screws to give my Takamine 12-string jumbo body a home. If you like this video, let me know in the comments, and be sure to explore grizzly.com to further your woodworking journey, and look for future videos where I explore more intermediate and advanced techniques. And, as always, thanks for watching.